Anticipation invites vulnerability. It cracks us open in a way that's often misunderstood. To anticipate something, whether it's an answer, a new season, a breakthrough, or even a loss, is to allow ourselves to feel exposed. Because in the space between the now and the not yet, we are confronted by the weight of uncertainty. And there's something sacred about that space. It's the place where our hearts whisper both hope and fear in the same breath. We live in a world obsessed with certainty. We are taught to plan everything, to predict outcomes, to control circumstances. But anticipation defies control. It asks us to sit with questions, to stay open, and to live in emotional honesty. That kind of openness doesn't feel safe. It requires trust. It requires surrender. And most of all, it requires a level of courage that doesn't look like bold action. It looks like stillness. It looks like waking up every morning and choosing not to run from the tension of what we do not yet know. When you are anticipating something deeply meaningful, you are essentially revealing what you care about, and that alone can feel terrifying. You're saying, this matters to me. And anytime we name what matters, we risk disappointment, we risk being wrong, we risk getting hurt. But that's also where the fullness of life lives. You can't numb anticipation without also numbing joy. You can't detach from your desire for clarity without also dulling your experience of hope. So many of us try to outsmart vulnerability. We tell ourselves it's better not to get our hopes up. We shrink our expectations. We pretend we don't care. But deep down, we do. That inner knowing never goes away. It just gets buried beneath layers of self-protection. And one day we wake up wondering why we feel numb, disconnected, and restless. Here's the truth that no one teaches us growing up. Emotional numbness is not safety. It's self-abandonment. When you mute anticipation to avoid vulnerability, you're not protecting your peace. You're avoiding your own aliveness. Life is made up of moments that stretch us. Moments where we're unsure. Moments where all we have is our intention, our breath, and our belief that something good could still come out of the unknown. You don't have to have all the answers to trust the process. You don't have to know the outcome to show up wholeheartedly. Anticipation invites you to grow, not because you have guarantees, but because you have faith. And faith at its core is choosing to stay tender in the face of uncertainty. It's saying, even if I don't know what's coming, I will not close my heart. I will not become hardened by fear. There is wisdom in vulnerability. It's not weakness. It's presence. It's awareness. When you anticipate something, when you wait for it, pray for it, prepare for it, you are letting the world know you are still engaged, you are still invested, you are still willing to hope. And that kind of emotional investment is rare in a world that thrives on detachment and distraction. If you're in a season of anticipation right now, waiting for a change, a breakthrough, a sign, know this, you are in sacred territory. You're in the in-between where transformation quietly brews. Don't rush through it. Don't despise it. Don't try to numb it. There's something here for you, even in the waiting. Waiting has a way of confronting us with our inner narratives. What do you believe about yourself while you wait? Do you believe you're worthy even if things don't go your way? Do you believe good things are coming even when you can't see them? Or do you default to fear, scarcity, and self-blame? This is why anticipation is so powerful. It reveals the stories we carry. It gives us a mirror. It shows us whether we've tied our value to outcomes or whether we've rooted our identity in something deeper. And the most radical thing you can do in that mirror moment is choose grace. Grace for yourself, grace for the uncertainty, grace for the process. Anticipation doesn't demand perfection. It invites reflection. It invites humility. It reminds us that we are human, wired to long for things, to hope, to reach for meaning. You don't need to silence your anticipation to be strong. You don't need to pretend you don't care just to prove you're resilient. Real resilience is not how little you feel, it's how deeply you engage with what you're feeling. Let yourself be seen by your own soul. Let yourself name what you desire. Let yourself hope without shame. Because hope is not naive, it's courageous. Anticipation is not weakness, it's faith in motion. And vulnerability is not something to escape, it's something to embrace. There's something so beautiful about people who can sit in the unknown without losing their tenderness. These are the people who have done the work. The people who know that life's deepest meaning is often found in the tension, not the resolution. They've stopped looking for quick fixes. They've stopped performing certainty, and instead they've leaned into the messiness of being alive. You are not too emotional for feeling deeply in this season. You are not weak for craving clarity. You are human. And the sooner you honor that humanness, the freer you will feel. Because freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. From the quiet confidence that says, no matter what comes next, I will not abandon myself in the waiting. If you've ever been told that anticipation is foolish, that you shouldn't get your hopes up, know that you have permission to disagree. You have permission to hope boldly, to feel deeply, to desire greatly, and you have permission to trust that your heart knows the way, even when the path is still unfolding. Let this be a reminder. You don't have to rush clarity. You don't have to hide your excitement. You don't have to pretend to be detached to protect your heart. There is strength in staying open. There is wisdom in staying soft. There is power in staying present. Anticipation is not the enemy. Avoiding it is. Because the more we avoid anticipation, the more we disconnect from ourselves. And the more we disconnect, the harder it becomes to recognize what actually matters. So, stay connected, stay rooted, stay honest. Let the anticipation stretch you, not shatter you. Let it deepen your self-trust. Let it remind you that you are alive, awake, and emotionally engaged. That's what it means to be fully human. That's what it means to live bravely. And above all else, let the anticipation be a teacher. Let it teach you to hold space for both excitement and fear. Let it teach you to honor your desires without demanding perfection. Let it teach you to show up for yourself even when the world feels uncertain. You are not too much for wanting more. You are not too fragile for walking through this waiting season. You are equipped, you are anchored, you are held. Anticipation invites vulnerability. But it also invites connection, it invites growth, it invites awakening. Don't run from it, lean into it. There's something on the other side worth discovering. And more importantly, there's something within you right now that's worth honoring. You are not here to numb your way through life. You are here to feel it all, to grow through it all, and to rise again and again as someone who chooses truth over fear, presence over avoidance, and courage over control. Let yourself feel it all. Let yourself hope. Let yourself wait. And in the waiting, trust this moment, this breath, this season. It is enough. The space before clarity is sacred. It is not a void to be feared or rushed through. It is not a mistake or a detour. It is a threshold. Thin, fragile, but holy. It's the tender space where our souls are stretched, reshaped, and refined. It's the space where we are invited to stay long enough to listen, even when all we hear is silence. Most of us don't like the space before clarity. We are conditioned to crave answers, to demand direction, to seek certainty like oxygen. But clarity doesn't come by force. It doesn't arrive on command. It comes through presence. It comes through staying, not running, through asking, not pretending, through feeling, not fixing. There is something undeniably human about needing clarity. We want to know. We want to plan. We want to protect ourselves from the unknown. But when we stand in that in-between space between what was and what will be, there is an opportunity that can't be manufactured in any other season of life. There is a holy invitation to become, not just to know. The space before clarity is where the old parts of you begin to fall away. You may not even notice it at first. You just feel tired. You feel stretched. You feel raw. You wonder what's happening, why things that used to make sense no longer do. Why what once brought comfort now brings restlessness. But it's not regression. It's transformation. Transformation is never sterile. It is messy. It is confusing. It is unpredictable. And in our effort to avoid the discomfort of not knowing, we often try to move on too quickly. We try to slap certainty on what was never meant to be resolved yet. We try to make meaning before we've lived the moment. But healing, insight, and alignment don't arrive through shortcuts. They arrive through surrender. To honor the space before clarity is to say, I am willing to be with what is. It is to sit down in the fog and breathe. It is to trust that not all growth is loud. Some growth happens quietly, privately, in the dark, like roots digging deeper before anything blooms. Sometimes the fog of uncertainty is not hiding the answers. It's protecting the timing. You are not being punished in the waiting. You are being prepared. You are being matured. You are being awakened to parts of yourself that you would not have noticed if everything were moving at the speed you desired. You're learning how to listen, not just hear, how to observe, not just react, how to feel, not just suppress. And most importantly, you're learning how to be honest. Honest about what you want, honest about what you fear, honest about where you've been pretending just to keep peace. The space before clarity is sacred because it breaks your illusions. It strips away the performance. It reveals what is real. Not what is curated, not what is convenient, but what is true. It takes courage to live in that space without panicking. It takes maturity to say, I don't know yet, but I am here. We are not taught to value the unknown. We are taught to label it as danger, as failure, as delay. But sometimes the most important revelations of our lives are born in the waiting. Sometimes the silence is not abandonment. There is power in resisting the urge to force answers, power in breathing through the discomfort of not having it all figured out, power in choosing presence over performance. Because the truth is, Clarity that is forced is rarely authentic. But clarity that arises from trust, from surrender, from listening, that kind of clarity is unshakable. The world might try to rush you. It might tell you to just decide, to move on, to figure it out already. But only you know what your soul is asking for. And if what it's asking for is stillness, then honor that. If what it's asking for is time, then take it. Don't let urgency override wisdom. Don't let noise drown out your knowing. Sometimes you are being slowed down because there are truths you haven't faced yet. Sometimes clarity is delayed because your heart needs to heal first. And sometimes clarity is simply waiting for you to remember who you are before it gives you the next assignment. The space you're in, it's not a mistake. It's an altar. It's the space where transformation begins. Even if you don't see it yet, it's where you begin to question everything you used to believe, not because you're lost, but because you're finding a deeper truth. You are not broken for feeling uncertain. You are not weak for feeling emotional. You are human. And being human means you will have seasons where all you have is your breath and your belief that something meaningful is still unfolding, even if it's not clear how or when. You are allowed to rest in the unknown. You are allowed to feel all the feelings that come with not knowing what's next. You are allowed to be hopeful and afraid at the same time. You are allowed to be both grateful and confused. This is the paradox of becoming. This is the paradox of transformation. The sacredness of this space is in how it invites us to slow down, to remember, to reconnect. It invites us to tune back into our intuition. The voice that got drowned out by expectations, by fear, by trying to keep everything together. It invites us to question where we gave our power away, to reflect on where we've been saying yes when we meant no, to explore where we've been living someone else's definition of success. In the space before clarity, there is room to reimagine. Room to redefine, room to rewrite, not because everything outside has changed, but because you are changing, and when you change, your clarity will too. You'll start to see what once blinded you. You'll start to say what once scared you. You don't need a perfect plan to have a meaningful life. You don't need perfect clarity to live with intention. You just need honesty. You need compassion, you need presence, and you need faith. Not the kind that demands certainty, but the kind that embraces mystery. Your life is not on pause. You are not stuck. You are in process. Something within you is shifting, healing, unfolding. Let it. Let yourself be held by something greater than your understanding. Let yourself soften into the sacred pause. Sometimes the gift is not in the answer, it's in who you become while you wait for it. You are being strengthened. You are being grounded. You are being prepared for something that requires this version of you. Not the rushed one, not the forced one, but the real one. The deeply rooted one. The one who doesn't need to perform to feel worthy. The one who trusts that their intuition is not crazy. The one who knows that their heart matters. And even if no one else sees what you're holding, what you're navigating, what you're waiting for, your spirit sees. Your spirit knows, and your spirit is not in a hurry. It is wise. It is patient. It is grounded in a knowing that cannot be shaken by timelines or pressures or opinions. So breathe. Breathe deeply into this sacred space. Stop trying to sprint toward answers. Let your feet rest on this holy ground. Let your heart speak. Let your body rest. Let your truth rise. Clarity will come. But let it come in its own time. Let it be born out of honesty, not fear. Let it be rooted in love, not desperation. Let it be a reflection of your alignment, not your anxiety. The space before clarity is sacred. It is where you meet yourself, where you sit with your questions without demanding conclusions, where you remember that your worth is not based on how quickly you figure things out, but on how fully you live. Even in the not knowing, this space is not empty. It is full of possibility. It is full of guidance waiting to be felt. It is full of healing waiting to be received. It is full of whispers waiting to be heard. So be still. Be open. Be here. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are brave for being here, for staying present, for choosing not to rush what is sacred. If you are walking through a space that many avoid, but you are showing up. You are choosing presence. And in doing so, you are laying the foundation for clarity that will not only guide your path, but free your soul. Every great shift begins with inner alignment, not with force, not with noise, not with grand declarations, but with something quieter, deeper, and infinitely more powerful. The moment you decide to stop betraying yourself, the moment you stop abandoning your truth to fit into someone else's comfort zone, the moment you stop negotiating your peace just to keep the peace, that's where the real transformation starts. We live in a world obsessed with change from the outside in. Fix the job, change the relationship, lose the weight, get the degree, earn the title. And while none of these are wrong or meaningless, they are empty if we pursue them while disconnected from who we truly are. Real change, the kind that lasts, the kind that liberates, starts from the inside. It begins when you stop looking outside for validation and start looking within for alignment. Inner alignment is not about perfection. It's not about having all the answers or getting everything right. It's about being honest. Honest about who you are, what you value, what you need, what you're no longer willing to tolerate, and where your soul is being led, even if no one else understands it yet. Becomes a point where the discomfort of pretending becomes more painful than the discomfort of growing. And in that moment, something inside you wakes up. It doesn't roar, it whispers. But the whisper is powerful. It says, no more. No more shrinking, no more pleasing, no more hiding behind roles, titles, or expectations. No more lying to yourself about what you want, what you feel, and who you're becoming. That's the beginning of the shift. That's the sacred turning point. And the shift might not be visible to anyone else yet. You might still show up to the same job, sleep in the same bed, have the same routine, but something inside of you is rearranging. A new foundation is being laid. Not for performance, but for a purpose. Not for applause, but for peace. Not for survival, but for soul-level sustainability. Inner alignment isn't about a perfect life, it's about a true life. A life where your values and your actions match. A life where your words reflect your heart, not your fear. A life where your boundaries are rooted in self-respect, not resentment. A life where your decisions are no longer driven by guilt, obligation, or scarcity, but by clarity, compassion, and courage. And let's be honest, this shift isn't easy. Because the moment you start choosing alignment over approval, the world pushes back. People who benefited from your silence may resent your voice. People who loved your compliance may challenge your conviction. People who mistook your kindness for weakness may not recognize the version of you that now speaks up and stands firm. But that resistance doesn't mean you're wrong. It often means you're finally right. You're no longer shape-shifting to be digestible. You're no longer sacrificing your truth to maintain false harmony. You're no longer performing a version of you that was only ever meant to survive but not to thrive. Real alignment doesn't always feel safe at first. In fact, it often feels like loss. The loss of relationships that only worked because you didn't speak up. The loss of identities that were built on being what others needed you to be. The loss of patterns that kept you comfortable but not free. But what you gain is far greater than what you lose. You gain self-trust, you gain clarity, you gain freedom, you gain the ability to look in the mirror and say, I know who I am and I'm proud of how I show up. That kind of integrity is priceless. That kind of peace can't be bought. That kind of wholeness can't be fabricated. Every great shift begins with inner alignment, because every external change you truly want, whether it's a healthier relationship, a more fulfilling career, a stronger body, or a more grounded life, requires you to first become internally congruent. You can't sustain change you're not aligned with. You can't hold on to growth that your soul doesn't feel safe in. You can't fake peace. This is where we begin to understand that alignment isn't just about saying yes to the right things. It's also about saying no to what no longer serves you. And that no isn't cruel, it's kind. It protects your energy. It honors your time. It creates space for what's real. Because when you say no from a place of alignment, you're not rejecting others, you're respecting yourself. Alignment also requires a willingness to slow down. In a world that rewards hustle and over-defunctioning, choosing stillness can feel radical. But you can't align with your truth if you're constantly distracted. You can't hear your intuition over the noise of everyone else's expectations. And you can't build a life that feels good on the inside if you're only chasing what looks good on the outside. So you pause, you breathe, you ask the harder questions, not to shame yourself, but to meet yourself. What do I truly want? What have I been avoiding? Where have I been pretending? What does freedom look like for me? Not in theory, but in practice. The answers might not come quickly, that's okay. Alignment is not a destination, it's a rhythm. A rhythm of returning to yourself again and again, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you something, because it will cost you. But what you gain, inner peace, purpose, and power, is worth more than anything you leave behind. You learn to walk away, not because you're bitter, but because you're better without environments that dilute your spirit. You learn to speak up, not to be right, but to be real. You learn to rest, not because you're lazy, but because you finally understand that rest is sacred and necessary. You learn to love not from neediness, but from overflow. When you are aligned with your values, you make different choices. You stop settling for crumbs when you know you were made for the table. You stop begging to be chosen when you realize you've already chosen yourself. You stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And even in the quiet moments, when no one sees your shift, when your growth goes uncelebrated, you keep choosing alignment. Because you're not doing this for applause. You're doing this for your soul. You're doing this for your peace. You're doing this because something inside of you finally said, I'm tired of pretending. I'm ready to be free. There will be days when you doubt yourself, days when old patterns call you back, days when fear whispers, maybe it's safer to go back to what you knew, but you've tasted something deeper now. You've seen what it feels like to stand in your truth. You've felt the strength of self-respect. And that's not something you can unknow. It lives in your bones now. Every great shift begins with inner alignment. And that shift, while invisible to the world at first, changes everything. It changes how you enter rooms, how you speak your truth, how you honor your needs, how you navigate conflict, how you love yourself, how you grieve, how you grow. It changes your relationships, not by forcing others to change, but by refusing to abandon yourself to maintain them. It changes your leadership, not by controlling others, but by leading with integrity and vulnerability. It changes your presence, not by being loud, but by being grounded. You start to move differently, speak differently, love differently, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're finally living from a place that's real. And that's where your power lives. Not in the version of you that pleases everyone, not in the version of you that bends over backward to be accepted, but in the version of you that is deeply rooted in who you are and what you stand for. The version of you that doesn't need permission to belong. The version of you that can walk away from what harms and walk toward what heals. Every great shift begins with inner alignment, because that is where truth lives. That is where freedom begins. And that is where you meet the most important person in your life, yourself.